Guys, welcome back. Guys, onto this particular lecture, what we are going to understand is that we have done what functional interfaces were, and now there are certain types of functional interfaces, right? Which you are going to be required to have knowledge if you want to work into a software industry, into an IT industry, and if you want to gain something from it, right? So I am going to discuss the most important ones. The very first important one is a supplier. What is a supplier? Guys, it's going to be a short lecture, so even if you're traveling somewhere else, if you do not have time, you have very limited bandwidth, just keep on listening. Things will be getting cleared out, right? Okay, so what is a supplier? Supplier, it is a functional interface, that contains single abstract method. So what is a functional interface? In my previous lecture we have discussed all these points, that a functional interface is an interface that contains a single abstract method. Okay, it enables us to make use of lambda expressions, and it also makes us to make use of functional programming. Okay, so this was a functional interface definition. And what is a supplier? Supplier is also a particular type of functional interface, you can say. Okay, there are various types of functional interface like supplier, consumer, predicate, and number of, right? We are going to discuss everything. But supplier is a functional interface, and whenever you see the term functional interface, automatically in your mind you should register yourself that it is going to contain a single abstract method. Because if it contains two abstract method and there is an at annotation defined that it is a functional interface, compiler will start giving you some sort of error messages. Okay, so what we were discussing about supplier function. Sorry, something I got interrupted in between. So at this point of time, only thing you need to understand, if somebody asks you, I want to know what is a supplier, so you would simply say that supplier, it is a functional interface. By meaning of functional interface, it simply means that it is going to contain only a single abstract method. Why? Because I have already given you a demo in the last lecture, that if there is add functional interface and if you try to add two methods over there, it will start giving error. Compiler will start giving error, right? This was the use of a functional interface, one of the uses we have already discussed. Okay, the second thing, so what is the name of that single abstract method? The name of that single abstract method which a supplier contains is a get method. Okay, and the speciality, you can say, that of get method is that without taking any input parameter, without taking any input argument, it keeps on returning some set of values. Okay, it keeps on returning some set of values. So how a supplier normally looks like in terms of coding language, for that you have to come to my screen. Okay, so see, I have taken an example of that. This is a public interface supplier, and what is T over here? T simply represents, please try to understand in very normal language. Do not get confused that what is this T type, return type, blah blah. Just forget. T simply explains or displays that type of what type of values the supplier is going to return. Okay, a supplier can be of boolean type, a supplier can be of integer type, a supplier can be of type string, right? So suppliers can be of very different types. Okay, like you can take example of method. A method may also return a boolean value, a method may also return a string value, alphanumeric value, integers, float values, right? In the same way, what kind of result it is going to return is denoted by this word, this letter T. Okay, and it contains a single method which is by default public abstract. And this single abstract method, we are going to provide the implementation for it, right? I hope the concept is getting clearer. Again, back to the theory. Supplier is a functional interface that contains single abstract method. So it is a functional interface. It contains only one method. There are not two, three methods, right? And since it is add functional interface with this add annotation, it means that now it's going to contain only one single abstract method, right? Because compiler will start throwing error if you try to even add it. Here itself it will give you an error. I already showed in the last demo, right? Okay, And the get method, what is the specialty of this method? The specialty of this method is that it will not take any input from user end, right? But it will keep on supplying some values. What those values are, what is the objective of those values, why you need to keep on supplying those values, I am going to discuss over here itself, right, in this very lecture. But first try to understand the concept and the theoretical part, because if theory is the image of the theory part, if the image of supplier is clear in your mind, you can build the logic. And if you are not visualizing how supplier would look like in your normal day-to-day life, who is a supplier in your normal day-to-day life, just try to think in that particular term. A supplier is a person who keeps on supplying something without taking anything from you, right? I have some jotted down some in local language. I was just in order to provide you some summary in case of local language, if you want to understand, right, what the way people talk it about, right? So there are cases where we just need to get some values, where we need to generate some values, or there are places where we just need to have some values, right? Whether it be random name you would be requiring at some point of time, you would be requiring random IDs, right? Anything without some passing any input, and then getting output. Like in method, whenever you want to call a particular method, let's say it is taking integer as an input parameter, so you have to pass integer as an input parameter, and then you would be getting some form of output, right? This is what happens if you want to take the length kind of stuff example. But over here, what this supplier, the beauty of the supplier is that the get method of this supplier, again back to this part, the get method of this supplier does not take any single input parameter, and without taking any input parameter, it keeps on supplying you with some sort of values, right? So what those values are, what those values can be, what those ideological scenarios can be, we will discuss, right? So even if to some people, if that is not clear, if the syntax is still not clear, that what it is, what is functional interface, please refer my previous videos. Everything, you will get into my mindset, you will get into the skin of the concept. Okay. So this is the simple, how interface is written. I have already shown you how to write an interface, how to provide implementation in two different ways. Like I showed the example of Google and Facebook in last one of my lectures, right? Please go through the playlist and you will be able to understand what I'm trying to say. Okay. So first try to understand in the normal language the summary. Summary. If somebody asks you what is a supplier in real life, supplier, or what can be a supplier. So I've noted down very important line over here. Like supplier, it is a case where we do not want to give anything, but we want something, right? It's like I don't want to give you any money, but I want some money in return from you. It is that kind of scenario, right? So, for example, let's say there are people in some countries or in some places where they do not want to give vote, they do not want to give any input to their government, but what they want a good government, right? Another example you can try to understand, there are people who do not want to give food to needy, but they're always wanting to have food in surplus amount. You are not passing any input to anyone. Person who is hungry, you should give some food to that particular guy, right? But you are not providing that input to that person, but still you are expecting that every time I should have enormous amount of food or supplies till my lifetime, right? In the same way, you are not supplying constant effort in learning Java, but still people are fascinating or thinking that they should be having a salary of 50 lakhs per annum, right? Or 50 LPA minimum. So in that way, you can just try to understand what I'm trying to say over here. Again, I'm going to give some more example. So supplier is that kind of thing that keeps on providing you something without you being asked to provide value to it, right? In the same way, those who are not able to understand, let me understand, make you understand with this example, then everything is not clear, right? Who is a supplier? Let's say this is a family in which father is the whole sole earner, right? The father earns the money, right? There are two kids, kid 1, kid 2, and wife, right? This is kid 1, this is kid 2, and the wife, right? So in this particular scenario, Father is the supplier. Father is not taking any input from kid in order to supply them with what the father can do for the family. They can provide food, food, a family house, which you can normally call as shelter, clothing, satisfying the basic needs of kids. So a father is acting as a supplier to all the kids and wife. Father is not taking any input from this kid in order to provide good food to the kid. Father is not taking anything from this kid, from either this kid or from either wife, right? So this person is a supplier, and these people who are constantly, you know, taking value, but they are not returning anything. The return type is zero. Return type of kid 1, return type of kid 2 is 0, return type of wife is, let's say, 0, right? These people are not returning anything, but they are constantly taking something. So father becomes the supplier, and these people are the possible candidates of a consumer. I hope now, little bit, it was a weird example, but little bit people might be able to understand what is the concept of supplier, right? A consumer I'll discuss in the next lecture, but supplier, what happens again? If you're listening, just keep on listening. A supplier is that functional interface that supplies value without asking user to input any, value or provide any input parameter to the get method. So this is what supplier is all about, right? And places where, the supplier can be used. So I'm going to discuss those examples as well. So allow me to, allow me to open, let's say, the registration page. The ID is required. I just searched this particular page just 5 to 10 minutes back. So this is a registration page. Okay. In this registration page, let's say you have to test this particular page. In order to test this particular page, you have to write an automation script that should run for 10,000 users. Any application can have 10,000 users or 1 lakhs or 1 million user. It's very very possible for applications like Google and Facebook, right? I hope you guys are getting the concept. So it's a valid scenario, and you would be required to run 10,000 times, or your script should run 10,000 times. And every time you have to provide some, a random first name, middle name, last name, a random phone number you have to provide. You cannot provide 10,000 real phone names over here, right? Or you cannot have the test data already ready, so you need to generate some random things and keep on providing it, so that you can test all the validation with 9 digits, first name, middle name, and last name, boundary value analysis you can do, how many characters it is doing. So these kinds of scenarios, suppliers becomes a very important and very possible candidate. Because a supplier, you just have to call this method, you just have to call supplier part, and it will keep on returning you something, random values, random first name, random middle name, random last name, and random phone number. Okay. So this is the entire concept of supplier. Again, just I'll take 1 minute to reiterate everything, guys, so that it gets stuck onto your mind. So what is a supplier? Functional interface, the first thing that should come onto your mind. And what is a functional interface? Functional interface is that interface that is, embedded with at functional interface annotation, and it contains single abstract method. Okay. The second beauty of uh, supplier is that it contains a get method, but which is not taking any input, but it is always returning something. Okay. In the same way, like father, kids, and wife, father is not taking any inputs from them, that hey kid, in order to raise you, give me some money so that I can raise you. It's not that kind of scenario. Father is keep on supplying money, food, shelter, clothing, blah blah blah, XYZ, right? So father is a supplier over here, and these people are possible candidates of a consumer. And please let me know in the comment section if still you want some more theory part, because I think theoretical part uh, is enough for this. In my next lecture, we are going to understand with the help of an example. We are going to create a supplier in front of you. We will create it, and we are going to run that particular code, so that whenever we require some random ID generation, we simply call that particular supplier, right? So in my next lecture, we are going to cover all these examples one by one. We'll creating programs, you can say, right? So first program would be of we have to generate some random id, numeric id, and with the help of that particular id we are going to pass that value. Or let's say a phone number. Okay, let's take example of phone number. I'll be generating some random phone numbers in, and phone numbers are simply integer, right? So I'll be generating some random phone numbers and we'll be creating a program to create a supplier, that generates a random phone number, so that why I'm generating, so that I can enter it onto this particular field. Or any registration page, you can google it out, you can type in anything over here, any registration page in your organization, any registration page of Google, Yahoo, Facebook, blah blah blah, any other application, phone number is required, right? So in order to test that application 20,000 times, 30,000 times, 1 million, 1 billion times, you need some random data, right? So in these kinds of scenarios, supplier is a very, it will act like an asset to you, right? Okay team, so I'm just signing off. Thank you.